Good morning. My name is Brian Wheeler, Director of Communications for the City of Charlottesville. Welcome to Cville360, a program to inform and engage the Charlottesville community. During the coronavirus pandemic, the city's leadership knows you want to hear from us frequently about our actions. We also want to hear from you and provide opportunities for engagement. We've launched this program on our streaming sites, Comcast Channel 10, and on a companion Zoom webinar, so you can tune in live and on demand while practicing social distancing. The webinar allows you to join the broadcast and ask questions of our guest. If you want to try the webinar, visit charlottesville.gov/Zoom for the registration information. A link to each show appears at the bottom of the page. At the top of each program, we'll have a brief update on the state of the coronavirus and the city's response. Today, we will hear from Deputy Fire Chief Joe Powers, who joins us via webinar. The remainder of the program today will focus on economic development and the recovery planning underway to rebound our economy. On the webinar, you can type your questions in the Q&A module, or you can click the raise your hand icon and I'll bring you onto the program to speak directly to our guest. Well, let's welcome Deputy Chief Joe Powers. Welcome to the program. Can you hear us okay?
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, thank you, Brian. Can you hear me good?
We can. First, I want to share the announcement that the city made yesterday that you're wearing a new hat and you've been promoted to Fire Marshal. So congratulations.
Yeah, so the swearing in is today at City Hall at 1 p.m. And I think it's still going to be raining, so
okay.
It's going to be okay.
We'll make sure you get out of here in time.
Yeah, thank you.
And tell us a little bit about that move and who you're replacing.
Yeah, so big thanks goes out to Jay Davis, who's the battalion chief with the city, who's retiring today after almost 25 or just over 25 years. He's done a great job in really changing the way that the fire code and the fire marshal's office interact with our business community. So thank you to Jay Davis, who actually just turned in all of his gear, and his son came and picked him up and took him home.
Absolutely. Yeah, we do appreciate his service. And you're on the program today because you have another new hat as the city's incident commander for our coronavirus response. And while Chief Baxter's focused on activity at the regional level, we appreciate you appearing to provide an update on our response. So first, give us a high-level update on where we are.
Yeah, thank you, and good morning, everyone. So I was named the city's incident commander this week. And a big thanks goes to Chief Baxter for providing citywide leadership during this crisis over the last few weeks. Here recently, I've been working a lot with the city's recovery planning efforts to make sure that we support our community as we move forward. I'm also working with the Chamber of Commerce with Project Rebound to better understand the needs of the community, the nonprofits, the area businesses, and city infrastructure. The city's strategic goals for COVID-19 largely remain the same with the transition of incident commanders. We are going to remain providing essential services, protecting and supporting those vulnerable populations, protecting and supporting our first responders and their families, and also all those other direct care or direct service providers such as social workers and our transit employees. We're going to sustain the health system and by flattening the curve. And then we're also going to start to prepare and plan community support through recovery. As of April 29th, and I think that we've got the new COVID dashboard available. As of April 29th, the Thomas Jefferson Health District has 264 total cases and unfortunately 12 fatalities. 52 of those cases are in the city of Charlottesville, 81 cases in Albemarle. As you're seeing here on the screen, the Thomas Jefferson Health District released a new COVID data portal or dashboard. And I encourage everybody to Google VDH Thomas Jefferson, and I found it pretty quickly just before the broadcast.
And
it provides,
Joe, let me give you another link we can use, because we've embedded this within the city's website, and you can go to charlottesville.gov/coronavirus and see that same dashboard.
Perfect. From a standpoint on personal protective equipment in the city, our city's supply of PPE is good. We have a regional team that is tracking and maintaining our COVID-19 supplies and those supply chains. On a similar topic, you may have seen the National Guard throughout the region Since last Friday, the National Guard has been in the city of Charlottesville and Albemarle County providing fit testing services for providers that need to wear N95 respirator masks. Those masks, in order to wear them, you need to have special training and you need to be specially fitted to make sure that it fits your face the right way. And I'd like to really thank all the people that are involved in this very intensive regional effort because it's very important in the mitigation of our virus spread. We continue to monitor the health and wellness of all of our employees throughout the city. We're trying to make sure that our employees feel safe coming to work and they're provided with the training and equipment that they need. But we are also making sure that their families feel safe and supported as well. These are very trying times, and our mental health is just as important as our physical health. So please keep an eye on your family, your friends. Connect frequently with them by voice texts or by videos, text messages, and phone calls, because staying connected with each other is very, very important. From a recovery front, last Friday during the governor's teleconference, he announced a three-phased approach to recovery. Luckily, here in the city, we've been following that same three-phased approach for several weeks, and that's how we've been working with individual departments to plan for recovery and to support our community. We're monitoring regional health data to better understand our achievement toward recovery. However, recovery is not going to be a light switch. It's not going to be turn on and turn off. It's going to be a phased approach, and we're using a strategic approach to really prevent regression. We've made a lot of progress here in the community in suppressing the virus spread, and we just don't want to go backwards and go back into a mitigation effort. And then lastly, I encourage everybody to continue to wash your hands and limit your exposure to everybody else by just staying at home. Thanks, Brian. Do you have any questions?
So if our audience has any questions, you can raise your hand in the webinar, or you can type a question in the Q&A module. Definitely today's theme is recovery. We're going to talk about economic recovery. But Deputy Chief Powers, I think it's interesting you're starting conversations with all of the major leaders in the city talking about what their departments will have to do to recover. And I wonder if maybe you could share a few anecdotes from some of those conversations, some things maybe that surprised you or that you hadn't thought about when it comes to recovery for city business.
Yeah, sure, Brian, thanks. One of the important things that we're doing is making sure that many of our city leaders and city employees are looking beyond today's crisis and looking at what's going to happen tomorrow, so that we can make sure that our area businesses and our community members are well supported. One of the aspects that we look at are the potential challenges for reopening parts of our city government and our city services and how that looks with each of the phases. But we're also looking at where COVID has found efficiencies in city government, such as webinars and FaceTiming. The Department of Social Services found that many of their older population are much better at using FaceTime and video conferencing, which allows them to now check in more often while they're still doing face-to-face visits. But the social services found that they can actually check in more often with their clients using video services, which makes them feel more connected to the community.
That's really interesting. Another thing I want to make sure to emphasize is that the city manager has determined that City Hall will not reopen for the next 4 weeks, into May. And it's not a time to, let our guard down or back away from these practices when it comes to social distancing, wearing of masks, things like that. And, we look around the country and we're seeing other communities making decisions about reopening things. Is there anything from our incident commander that you want to emphasize for the community?
Yeah, we need to make sure that we take this as a strategic approach to recovery. We need to be cautious of how quickly we reintegrate the community, because we definitely don't want to go backwards. If we pull the trigger too early, we'll quickly have a peak in virus spread, and we'll go right back into mitigation, which takes away all of the progress that we've done so far.
Deputy Chief Powers, thank you very much for appearing today and for all the work you're doing to support the city and our staff.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate it. I look forward to the rest of the program.
Great. So the rest of the program, we're going to talk about economic development and economic recovery. And in the studio, we have Chris Engel, who's the city's Director of Economic Development. And via webinar, let me pull up a view of our other guest. See if I can make the magic happen here. There we go. We have Roger Johnson, who's Albemarle's Economic Development Director. And we have Denise Herndon from the University of Virginia, where she is Program Director for Economic Development. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you, Brian.
We're going to start in the studio, and let me get it back to, see, if the video is not working, the secret is it's my fault. And not the engineers working behind the scenes here. I tell you, the webinars are a really interesting thing to try to blend with a TV broadcast, but that's the topic for another day, Chris. Let's talk about economic development and recovery. The City Council had a long work session Tuesday where it got updates from 10 department heads in the city. You were one of those staff, updating them on your work and what your staff are doing. But I thought your thoughts were particularly sobering to hear. And just share with the viewers maybe a little bit of what you told council about the challenges we face ahead.
Sure, Brian. I think the comment that probably got the attention was the fact that while this started as a public health crisis, it will end as an economic crisis in this community and elsewhere. And I shared some statistics regarding unemployment insurance claims locally. And about a month ago, we had 17 in a week, which is hardly any. 3 weeks later, we had 982 in a week. Fortunately, that number came back down the next week to a level of about 600 or so. But nonetheless, over the last month, we've had at least 3,000 individuals just in the city alone that have been added to the unemployment insurance rolls, which is a support for them, but it also indicates the severity of this particular crisis with respect to jobs for folks. So I believe, and I think a lot of others believe, that the recovery will be exponentially longer than the actual event itself, which is often the case. And I think we're in for a bit of a ride here as we start to come out of this. But we are here today to start talking about recovery, and we are thinking forward and into that space.
And where, sometimes we have disruptions, you think about internet disruptions of, Uber and impacting the taxi cab industry and things like that, where it's a particular sector of the economy. This has hit everybody, everywhere, all at once. And I think you said something like, nobody will have ever been through anything like this, of course.
No, it's fairly unprecedented. It is worldwide, it's nationwide, it's certainly throughout the state and here locally, across all sectors. Some are hit more than others, and we'll talk a little bit about that today, most likely, but everybody's going to be adjusting to, I hate to use the phrase new normal, but it seems to be the appropriate one as we move out of this.
Well, let's introduce our panelists again, and we'll start with Roger Johnson. Welcome, Roger, and maybe you could briefly introduce yourself to our viewers. Tell us about your day job and how you came to be in the community.
Thank you for welcoming in, Ryan. My name is Roger Johnson. I work in economic development for Albemarle County. I came to this community by way of North Carolina. I promise not to give my whole resume, but I have worked in local government in some aspects for a decade or so. Actually picked Albemarle County because of its bucolic lifestyle and one of the better places to live in the United States. And I was fortunate to find an opening, and I'm very happy to be here.
And have you been with the county now, is it 3 years?
A little over 2 years, Brian.
A little over 2, okay. And let's switch over to Denise Herndon. Denise, welcome. And tell us what you do at the university, what's your day job like, and how did you come to be here?
Yes, my name is Denise Herndon. I am the Program Director for Economic Development at the university. I've actually been in Charlottesville for about 17 years. What brought me here was actually building a small business. And so I'm pretty familiar with how welcoming Charlottesville is for the business community. But I have also been at the university for 15 years. And in my current role as program director for economic development, I work closely with the city, the county, our region in exploring ways we can leverage university assets and resources to assist with our regional economy.
Great. We will come back to our guests in just a moment, but let's kick off the topic we want to talk about, which is a project called Project Rebound, and it's being led by the Charlottesville Area Chamber of Commerce, Regional Chamber of Commerce. And Chris, tell us what this project's about and why the city's involved.
Sure. So Project Rebound is a local economic recovery initiative to address the COVID-19 impacts. And it's really about engaging businesses to share insights, identify challenges, and build actionable solutions to help restore or restart the economy here locally. You referenced this is being led by the Chamber. I want to be clear, we're missing one of our key team members today. Elizabeth Cromwell could not be with us, but the Chamber is leading this initiative on behalf of the business community and with our support. And I'm sure she would be the first to tell you that this wouldn't be possible without the strong collaborative working relationship between the city, the county, the university, and the Chamber. So we're delighted to be part of that team, but wanted to be clear that the Chamber is the web portal for this and is the focal point and the leader of the initiative. As for the city's involvement, it's pretty simple. You know, our economy is somewhat like a virus. It doesn't stop at the boundary, at the border, and we are far more interconnected than most of us realize. And I think this pandemic has pointed that out to a lot of people with respect to how the economy works and when one part stops, how it impacts the other pieces. So it makes sense for us to think regionally, to think community-wide with respect to recovery, and not just within the 10 square miles of the city. So pleased to be part of the team that includes the county and the university, and actually regional representatives as well are part of Project Rebound.
Let's talk about the county for a minute here, and let's bring Roger back. Roger, how does this project fit into your strategic plan for economic development, and what are you bringing to the effort?
Brian, the county has a strategic plan for economic development called Project Enable, which stands for Enabling a Better Life Economically. Project Enable has 7 key goals. I promise not to go through all of those, but one of those goals is creating strategic partnerships with economic development institutions for a cohesive planning and collaborative working relationship. Secondarily, we have a temporary strategy that we've pivoted as a county. It's a business continuity strategy, which was recently approved by our board, and it focuses on survival of existing businesses as much as expansion of existing businesses. Both our long-term strategic plan, Project Enable, and our pivoted short-term strategic plan for business continuity are directly aligned with the goals of Project Rebound, and we're delighted to be part of this effort as it directly benefits both our long-term and short-term goals, as well as creates long-lasting relationships for future collaboration.
And Denise, you know, we get asked a lot, how well is the city, county, UVA working together? You know, no matter what the issue is, that the public wants to know that those things are happening regionally. So tell us a little bit about UVA's role and what you hope to get from the project.
Yes, thank you. Well, the university, the city, and the county have been working in partnership for quite some time. And, you know, the university right now initially was part of the frontline patient care and research. But as Chris mentioned, we are starting to recognize that we need to be looking at what does recovery look like, and that is an economic aspect. So we recognize the impact that the university has on the regional economy. And President Ryan has encouraged us to seek out ways to partner with the community and be a good neighbor. And this is also part of becoming a good and great university. So we're excited. Through supporting the partnership, we hope to identify key factors that we can work on to get our economy up and running again. And we really look forward to collaborating with the city, the county, the chamber. As Chris noted, the chamber's the lead on this in this important initiative.
And Chris, you know, how is this project being structured, and give us a sense about timing.
Sure. So it's a unique project given that everything's going to happen virtually and in the next 30 days. So it's on a rapid time frame, and meetings are happening obviously not in person. But the way we've structured it is that there are 7 industry-specific teams, and I'm happy to outline those for the group here in a minute if you'd like. There will be members of the public, experts, subject matter experts, people with previous experience in these various sectors such as tourism or small business or anchor institutions are a couple examples that will self-select and have volunteered to be part of these groups. To date, we have 160 plus participants, and those have all signed up since this was announced, which was last Tuesday, I believe. So we've got a lot of community participation across the spectrum, and they will be engaging in facilitated video conference sessions, Zoom sessions. The facilitation will be led by the Office of Organizational Excellence at the university. They are providing some professional facilitators to facilitate those 90-minute sessions. There will be 2 of those for each group. In between those, there will be public comment, public engagement sessions as well, where any member of the public with an interest can hop on and provide some comment to those groups. Following all that information gathering and conversation, the co-leads and the steering committee will come back together and try and synthesize the information and pull out some highlights that can ultimately be part of the initial deliverable, which we hope to have by early June, to hopefully coincide with the end of the stay-at-home order that we expect and hope will happen in early June. Beyond that, there's a second phase that is kind of to look at long-term opportunities, and that will be determined by each group individually as to what they see as far as needs for continuing to meet. But the initial deliverable is timed for early June, and that's to be a blueprint or a guide or a set of recommendations for this community and how it responds and how it recovers.
Mm-hmm. I want to bring all the panelists up so we can see them on the screen here. And a question for anyone who wants to chime in. What are some examples of possible outcomes from this project? Let's make it real for the listener. Give us something tangible that could come out of this. Anybody want to take that?
Sure. Well, one thing that we've been talking about in some of our smaller steering committee meetings is the idea that there are different things that could be transferable. So, for example, some of our larger employers may be working on HR policies and how do we safely bring our employees back to work. And those are things that could be transferred to some smaller businesses that may not have the bandwidth to address that, but definitely have the need for developing those policies. So that could be one tangible thing that comes out of these conversations.
Great.
Brian, if you'll allow, I'll get a little more descriptive, and I have no idea if what I'm about to recommend will be an outcome of the actual project itself. But I think about not just the health and safety and security issues that will come out, but also just simple things that some businesses may adopt, whether it be one-way stairwells, floor markings with spatial distancing, dedicated on-street parking for pickup delivery of both people and goods. Those types of things I will expect will come out of this particular project, just because we're touching base in a way different than many communities are. Specifically, we're looking at this by calling in the subject matter experts of each individual economic sector and looking at it from a ground-up approach, as well as a safety and security top-down approach. Our hope is the blueprint we put forward will be both unique and customized to our community.
Yeah, Brian, I'll just add some thoughts on that note in terms of what might come out of this. As many folks know, the tourism and hospitality industry, as well as the small businesses that are both part of that and also support that, have been most significantly impacted right out of the gate here. Not surprisingly, those two committees, we have one for small business, we have one for tourism and hospitality, have seen the most volunteers of that 160 submit names to be on that group. So a lot of energy, a lot of interest in that sector, and they need help, and they need to think creatively about opportunities. The other piece about both of those is that they are discretionary activities upon which people choose to engage. So you choose to travel for stay in a hotel, go to a game, go to a historic site. So we're going to have to work as a community, as all communities will, to earn the trust of those leisure travelers to get them back so that they'll go to restaurants and they'll visit our shops and do things. That's going to take time. So I'm hopeful that these groups will think creatively about ways that they might be able to address that. Perhaps there's a standard that's developed amongst the hospitality industry here that is a seal of approval, so to speak, that says our community is participating in doing all these things to make it safer for you to be here. Some of those things could be, hand sanitization stations and things that Roger mentioned. And then we may need to market that and brand that and make that known so that people do feel a comfort and they're able to come back here. Additionally, businesses are going to need to operate a little differently. We're hearing things about restaurants are going to have a certain percentage of their seats available and not available. That's going to mean staffing changes. That's going to mean delivery and supply chain changes. Maybe businesses can do a little more cooperative thinking in those regards and share staff and make orders cooperatively to potentially enhance profitability and reduce costs. So those are a couple of things that come to mind for me that these groups might engage in. One thing's for sure, I think Roger referenced, we're not exactly sure what's going to come out from these groups. It'll be interesting to see.
Yep. We're going to put up on the screen a link to Project Rebound, so those of you following this can get more information. This is over at the Chamber's website, cville360.com/rebound. If you're watching via the webinar and you have a question, you can type it in the Q&A module, or you can click the raise your hand icon and I'll bring you into the conversation. If you've not joined the webinar, you can do so at charlottesville.gov/Zoom, and you can register quickly and get a link and join us via that platform. You mentioned all the people who are participating in these brainstorming groups. Now those are people volunteering their time to help come up with solutions and ideas, right?
That's correct.
Many other people are going to benefit. Some of those same people may get the benefits.
Correct.
But many other business leaders in the community will benefit.
Yes.
Yep.
That's right.
Denise or Roger, would you like to chime in with some other thoughts about the project and maybe some of the other teams that are working?
I would, Brian. Thank you for the opportunity. I'll mention that while there are 160 plus volunteers, there is also support coming from the University of Virginia and Albemarle County in terms of actual resources. Chris referenced Organizational Excellence Department earlier in his comments. Specifically, the University of Virginia is providing trained, experienced professional facilitators to make certain the outcomes from Project Rebound are reached. The county is providing a handful of scribes to make sure this information is documented, formatted, and presented in a way the community can digest it and use it in a practical way. Also, the city is part of the steering committee. So while there is a large portion of the population who has volunteered, this doesn't happen but for the contribution of anchor institutions like the University of Virginia, the city, the county, the chamber. It is 100% a collective effort, and we're going to be part of it.
And speaking of anchor institutions, we'll bring Denise back. So from the university's perspective, I know there's special interest, I assume, in the biotech and information technology sectors. I know there are teams focused on that work. But tell us some more about that and how you think UVA will be involved.
Well, UVA has definitely been involved. We've had a lot of researchers come up with innovative discoveries and technologies to address things such as testing. The community is working very closely with the Cville BioHub and other biotech companies as well. So there's been a lot of partnership, like Chris and Roger have mentioned. This is something that there is no playbook for, and we are all working together. That's one thing that I think we've all realized, is that we can work together to achieve more than if we worked in a more competitive environment. And so one thing that I think that will come of this crisis is stronger partnership and as a result, more innovation.
And so what you're saying is some of our local biotech companies could also be not only working on solutions for their business, but working on solutions for this health crisis.
Yes, absolutely.
Interesting. Chris, what are some of the other sectors and teams that we haven't talked about yet?
Yeah, let me just run down the list real quick so we have them. So reviving small businesses is one. Protecting the arts and creative community, which is very big here. Restarting the hospitality and tourism engine, as we've all alluded to, is very large here. Then we have assessing key industry clusters. So those are key clusters in our community. So information technology, biotechnology, food and beverage manufacturing, defense, business and financial services, those key industries that are kind of the backbone of this community. Those will get their own separate group. Actually, two groups. We're going to split because there's 6 industries there. We'll split each of those in half and have 2 groups there. Anchor institutions, which you've heard about, leveraging the strengths of anchor institutions, and not just the University, City, and County, but others. We have leadership from the community college as well as Martha Jefferson Hospital on that group. And then infrastructure is another, so preparing, tweaking, changing infrastructure that's going to be needed, whether that's transportation or other items is going to be looked at. And then restoring nonprofit and community organizations is the final group there. We all know that there's a large nonprofit sector base here, and so there's a lot of interest in making sure that their needs are accounted for and represented in this process.
Yeah, definitely. Nonprofits a big part of our local economy,
Yes.
and many of those groups, depend on donations and philanthropy, and it's difficult for them right now as well. But those same nonprofits are on the front lines helping the most vulnerable populations. So I know that there's been a lot of good collaborative work with United Way. I know the City Human Services Division and staffing these resource lines and making sure that grants through the Community Foundation are getting out there. So it's great to see them getting that attention. We have a question from our audience here. Neil Williamson says, I'm impressed that the Chamber is opening this up to all of the community and not just Chamber members. And then a question for Chris and Roger. Have there been significant interest in the microloans program, and are they funding and that the CIC is administering?
Sure, I'll take that. Thank you, Neil, for the question and giving the opportunity to point out both of these items. We mentioned that Elizabeth is not here, and if she were here, she would be sure to say that while this is led by the Chamber, it is not only for Chamber members. There's often a thought that you have to be a Chamber member to participate in something for the Chamber. That's not true in this case, and many of the Chamber's programs, in fact, are community-based and for the community, and that is the case here. So members on each of these committees can be not affiliated with the Chamber at all and feel like they can be part of it. So thanks for helping point that out, Neil. And to your question about the Business Recovery Fund, which is a joint project between the city and county and the Community Investment Collaborative, CIC, which is managing a new microloan, brand new microloan fund on behalf of the city and county. It is up and running. It's accepting applications, and I don't know the exact number, but the early results over 3 or 4 days, there were over 75 applications in the first couple of days. That period will be open through this week and next week for people to make those applications, and then they'll do the first round of reviews at that point. So there's still time for folks to engage in that, and that is a microloan through CIC up to $10,000 intended to help businesses restart, help them recapitalize and recover, and start that process of recovery.
I'm going to bring Roger Johnson back. Roger, I want to put you on the spot a little bit because we didn't talking about this. But another city-county project and one that was underway before the pandemic that I wanted to check in on, the Broadway Blueprint project and things down at Woolen Mills. We've had Chris Engel on our program talking about all of the major development projects that are still moving in the city and bringing additional, office space. But I know the Woolen Mills project was a really important one for the county. Where are we with that, given the pandemic?
Yeah, well, let me, Brian, thank you for that question. I'll certainly talk about Project Rebound and Woodland Mills. But before doing so, I'd like to just add a couple of things to the comments Chris made. He mentioned that there were 160 plus volunteers, but really there's an exponential involvement by our community. I think it speaks to the level of engagement here. So what was counted as one volunteer, for example, could be a representative from Willow Tree who is on one of the committees. Well, they're representing an organization that has over, have hundreds of employees. Frank Friedman, PVCC, and Jonathan from the Centura Martha Jefferson Hospital are leading a particular anchor institution. They're bringing to the table a large number of employees who are going to help with this particular project. So I think 160 volunteers speaks largely about the level of engagement in this community, but it really is an understatement for how many folks are actually involved with Project Rebound. Chris also spoke to the microloan program, and thank you, Neil, for that particular question. I'll also add that the Community Investment Collaborative is out seeking additional private investment to grow the amount of loans available through this program. It's quite clear that the demand is going to exceed the supply in terms of number of loans, and we're grateful the communities may come to the table to help grow this program and help these existing businesses survive. Having said that, I'll get to your actual question, which is about what's going on around Broadway and Woodland Mills. I'm pleased to report that we interact with Willow Tree regularly. They are a very successful app development company here in our community, as well as they help others with digitizing their processes, among other things. They are continuing plans to move forward, to move into the space at Woodland Mills. Obviously, the pandemic has slowed that, and that's beyond their control. As soon as governor orders sort of lift and they get an opportunity to move into Woodland Mills, their plans are to do so, I believe. They have began moving stuff in that particular direction. As for the Broadway blueprint, it's been difficult for us as a county to engage the community in that particular project, as the governor's orders have restricted community meetings and so forth. So at this particular juncture, we're taking a wait and see approach. Our plan was to go to the Board of Supervisors later in May to provide an update, and we're just not going to be ready to do that. And that is a direct result of the pandemic. So, that program itself, that planning effort has been slowed by the pandemic, but we fully expect it to move forward as the pandemic subsides.
Thank you. We'll bring Denise back. And Denise, other thoughts you want to share from the University of Virginia as we round out this segment on the program?
Well, we're just very excited to partner with the Chamber and the city and the county on this important initiative. We know that no one group can address everything. And so this effort is really positioning us to begin documenting those key factors that will help restart our economy. And we look forward to really helping Charlottesville stay a unique place and a special place and supporting our businesses.
And Denise, I've asked other guests on this program if there's anything that's changed about your life during the pandemic that you're going to keep doing, something new you didn't know you could do before that you're going to keep doing afterwards.
Oh, that's a great question. One thing that I have started doing more of is keeping in touch and reaching out via phone to my friends and family. I used to do more texting, and now I actually take the time to have longer conversations with people. And I really hope that I can continue that because I'm finding different ways of connecting meaningfully during this crisis.
That's great. And that's funny she says that. When I was a journalist and I was hiring interns to work at Charlottesville Tomorrow, using the telephone to call people terrified them. Mm-hmm. They were so used to texting. Mm-hmm. So it'd be fun to check back with some of my old interns and see if they're taking up Denise on her wisdom here. And I certainly need to practice that as well. And that reminds me to call my folks after the program and check in with them. Chris, other thoughts from you about where we go next?
Well, with respect to Project Rebound, it's uncertain what the outcome will be of the project, but I think the process is important, and I think it gives people an opportunity in the business community to come together, have an opportunity to have their voice heard, and contribute to a solution, which, to borrow the phrase, it's not necessarily about the destination, but the journey is certainly key to it. So I'm glad that we're embarking upon it. There's been comments about there's value in the fact that the city, county, and university are in lockstep on this and participating along with the business community. And I think that bodes well for our community. And frankly, if Elizabeth were here, she would be referencing the calls that she's gotten since this has been announced about other communities that are concerned or interested in hearing more about the approach.
Yep.
So we're hopeful for it.
And Roger, we'll give you the last word on Project Rebound.
Well, that may be a mistake because I like to give Chris the business, but I'll stay away from that and try to remain professional. I'll mention a couple of items that I think are important. We talked a lot about Project Rebound and its specific meaning to our community, but when the actual convening itself is probably as important, if not more important, than the product that we produce for Project Rebound. When it comes to learning about important issues and moving the needle in the right direction, convening is a low-cost and high-impact leadership tool. The power of bringing people together, the right people in particular, it gives us a chance to listen to others, learn from them, learn about the issues that are important, in this case, economic recovery. It's also one of the most powerful things we can do as a community to work together for the benefit of the society. For that, I'm grateful. So one of the things that will happen moving forward, I'm sure, is using technology to convene the right people. That's one change that will happen for me. And with a little more levity, but truthfulness, I'll say the other thing that may happen going forward is I will continue to have beer delivered directly to my home.
Thank you, Roger. Roger, Denise, and Chris, thank you very much for joining us on Cville360. Our next show will be on Tuesday, May 5th at 11 a.m., and joining the program for the first time will be City Councilor Sina McGill, who will help us recap the discussion City Council had the night before on Monday. These Zoom webinars are something we are using for City Council, so if you want to participate in that meeting, that'll be 6:30 Monday evening. All the information is available on the city's website at charlottesville.gov/calendar, and you can learn about upcoming episodes of this program and City Council meetings. Please contact me with your feedback and ideas for future topics and guests. Thank you for watching, and please stay healthy.